Welcome everyone to our Cascading Growth with the wonderful Camille Donegan. Very excited to have her here today. So these events for us are really all about connection because we believe so much in the power of conversation at Adaptus and the way that conversation can spark insight that then results in growth and learning beyond that conversation. We felt inspired to create a space where we just created the opportunity to bring interesting thinkers and minds together to see what insights and growth might be sparked as a result. And this idea really came about after we took some time to re-examine and reshape our own values here at Adaptus, which I have shared on the screen now. And through this process, we're reminded of something that we already know, but just the incredible importance of values at an organizational level. And we do a lot of work with clients on this exact topic about how having clarity around values, the organization's values and individual values, and how those two sets of values align or mix can lead to so much more clarity through work, in teams. It can fuel performance. And we've had some really amazing conversations so far with different high performers who are very aligned to their values and who use values as a tool, both personally and organizationally, to fuel their growth and their success. And so we're very excited today to have that conversation with Camille and hear about her values and how she's applied them both personally and within work to get to where she is today. So without further ado, I'm going to just pin us to the screen, Camille, and we will jump on in.
Thank you. Thanks, Annika.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with Sparks. And as I mentioned, even preparing for this was really informative for me, and I'm already learning lots more about myself just by really focusing in on the topic of values in this context. So I'm excited for the conversation. Thank you.
Amazing. So maybe we could begin with you telling us a little bit about who you are and the journey that has brought you to where you are today.
Sure. Yeah. So I used to be an actor. In fact, I wanted to be an actor and to study acting, and my dad said, nope. Get a real degree and then we'll talk about it. So I liked computer games. I applied for computer science. I got it. So I did computer science in TU Dublin, which was Kevin Street at the time. And it was hard. I wasn't a natural computer programmer, but I stuck with it. And it was definitely a good career move. And then I was working in IT and I was acting on the side. So I started a theatre company and I went to a studio called the Attic Studio, and that's where I met Dr. Celine Mullins, the CEO of Adaptus, and we've been working together ever since, really, with Act for Business, which was the initial iteration of Adaptus, and continuing work through today, which has also evolved considerably over the years. So I have parallel careers in IT and the arts, and that all culminated in 2015 when I went to a conference at Digital Biscuit in the Science Gallery, and there was a virtual reality installation there. It was there was a live theatre set, so there was this dinner table. The piece was called Doghouse by a creator in Denmark called Mads Dambo. And there was table settings, and you were asked which character you wanted to be. So as an actor, my mind was already blown. And there were these black devices, headsets on each of the settings. And so I talked to Mads and I said, what is this? And he said, this is the Oculus DK2. It's a virtual reality headset. And through this headset, you're going to be embodying one of the characters at this dinner table scene. And you can choose which character you want to be, and we'll have a conversation about it afterwards. So he talked me through the different character options. I chose the father at this awkward family dinner that I was about to dive into. And then I put on the headset and I was absolutely transported into this guy's body. I looked down, I'm in a guy's body. Yes, at one point he did go to the bathroom, which was very weird. It wasn't made in Ireland. And it was so fascinating. and visceral. So through nonverbal communication, I knew what my character was feeling. And that was the hook for
Mhm.
me. So there was dialogue, but it was in Danish and it was kind of pixelated subtitles. I couldn't really read them. The piece had been filmed on 180, it was a 180-degree view, kind of loosely went to here and here. And it was filmed with two GoPros with fisheye lenses on a helmet on each of the actors' heads. So I was, embodying the father. I knew that he was really annoyed with his wife. Every time she was like guzzling the wine, he would do this gigantic sigh. And
Mhm.
because of the spatial audio, I was in that sigh. I'm like, oh my God, he's pissed off with his wife. And then it was really weird. He was kind of like flirting with his son's girlfriend. And I knew that because every time she said anything, he would laugh, like this really silly little laugh. And I'm like, oh my God, so fascinating. Anyway, so I took off the headset, ran out of the conference, rang Celine, and I said, I found it. I have found the medium that we've been searching for, the medium to help people to see from other people's perspectives. Because it was something we used to talk about a lot when we would work with role play, with actors, forum theater techniques, etc. We were always going, how do you really shake people up? How do you really get them to see and feel and, taste from another person's perspective, like who might have a completely different worldview. So I literally left my job a week later, which was crazy. I had no savings.
Wow.
Um, definitely aligned with some crazy curiosity value of mine, and
Mhm.
went running around the country with a phone that clipped into the Samsung Gear headset and a really, bad entry level 360 camera. It was all that was available at the time. This is 2015. And kind of shouting to anyone who'd listen, this is the future. And the Attic Studio, I mentioned that myself and Celine were members of this acting studios. Actors, writers, and directors used to meet in Film Base in Temple Bar every Tuesday night for years and years and years. I had been running it for the previous 7 years. It was all on a voluntary basis. And we were like a really strong community and supported each other's work. And I brought the headset into the
Mhm.
attic. And I'm like, guys, this is it. This is going to be this new storytelling medium, and it's really exciting. And want to share it with you. And they were like, not interested in your tech, get
Oh.
out of here, forget about it. And it was like, oh no. And it was a really tough time. It was a real line in the sand moment for me because I love this community, but I knew that this is where I was evolving, or I was moving to. I wanted to focus on virtual reality and VR storytelling.
Mhm.
And so sadly, we closed the Attic Studio. And a week later, I started VR Community Ireland in the same space in Filmbase in
Mhm.
Temple Bar. And a handful of folks came from
Oh.
the Attic Studio, which was really wonderful. And some of them are still in the world and working as actors in VR today and, working on some of the projects with Adaptus. So there has been a subset and a crossover. And I just met a voiceover artist that I knew from the Attic the other day, and she's exploring how to get into immersive technologies, how to be an actor, how to work with motion capture, and
Mhm.
how to become a voice artist for avatars and games, etc. So like I'm kind of supporting her because obviously I know that world and I know this world. So it's been quite the journey to get to where I am today. And obviously we're going to get to talk a bit more about immersive later on.
Yes, which is very exciting. We were delighted with the timing of this interview because so much exciting stuff is happening with Immersive. So yeah, excited to get into that. But before, let's talk a little bit about your values. So when you think about your own personal values, what are the values that you look to every day, or what are your set of values, and why are they important to you?
Yeah. Well, kind of sharing that initial story about, leaping into this unknown domain. And it wasn't the first time I did it in my life. I did it with acting. I left my well-paid IT in finance career and ran off to LA to be an actor, came back with my tail between my legs a few months later, thinking I have my job back. Tried it a couple of years later in London, did the same thing. So I was so lucky to always have that kind of fallback position, but I always followed this kind of innate sense of curiosity and yeah, following my nose, I guess. And I couldn't help it. Like it was just this really strong impulse to follow my dreams, follow
Mm,
my passion. No matter what the cost was, even if I
mm,
didn't have like financial stability to make those decisions. So I remember when I was heading off to LA at the time to to become an actor or to make it in acting, and everybody I was working with in IT, and I was in part of Rabobank at the time, and all my colleagues were like, "Oh my God, you're so brave! You are so brave!" I
mm,
was like, "What are you talking about? I'm going to LA, follow my dream to be an actor. Why,
mm.
why is that brave?" And a few months later, when I was absolutely stony broke, I was like, "Oh, that's what they meant." So yeah, those two dots around, I guess maybe strategic thinking wasn't where I was at. Looking back, was I green? Was I naive? Or was I just an impulsive dreamer? So I'll go with the latter. So yeah, that curiosity thread, and I have no regrets. Like it was a bit bonkers, some of the decisions I made along the way from a kind of pragmatic perspective, but I've no regrets that I followed my dreams. And in terms of other values that I live by, and they're inherent within me, like I haven't worked on these values. In fact, sometimes I've tried to shed them, is like clarity, transparency, being really genuine. I don't kind of know how to be any other way.
Mm,
And so I've been told in business, stop being so nice.
mm,
You stop being such a walkover. And I've had to really make a conscious decision. I've sat with it, I've meditated upon it, I've written about it, I've journaled about it. And I'm like, I am not going to change who I am. I don't believe you have to be ruthless in business, that you have to walk over people, that you have to put profit first, no matter what, and maximizing profit. So I choose, maybe it's easier because I work mainly in not-for-profit sector, but I choose to not operate in business that way. So I stand by my truth. Um, I am kind, I'm genuine, I care about others, I'm empathetic, I'm
mm,
altruistic, and I purposely am not going to put on a shell to be, a business person that maybe is advocated in some of the business schools, or if you do an MBA. I haven't done an MBA. I don't know if they teach you that hard shell. I know the time I spent in London, I found London very cold and hard.
mhm,
And I remember meeting somebody at an audition, and they were like, "You won't last in London." And I was like,
mm,
"God, I've just arrived. I'm here to like make it as an actor. Of course I'm gonna, survive. I'm gonna, thrive in London." And they were like, "You're too soft, And I've also
mm,
sat with that quite a bit over the years. And I'm okay being soft but fair.
mhm.
Um, and yeah, that's probably what I would say about my values, which obviously links into personal and professional values.
Certainly. Yeah, and really interesting to hear you speak about the conscious decision to stick by those, even when your environment was trying to pull you maybe in a different direction.
Mm.
So, are there any examples from your life that you might be able to share with us that really helped you to recognize those values? Like, where did they become clear to you as these are my values?
Yeah, it's funny because I was, preparing the question earlier, and this may or may not be relevant, but it really jumped out in my mind, and it was back in London. I'm just back from a few days in London, which is probably why the London memories are really sparking at the moment.
Mm,
But I worked two jobs when I was in London, because I was paying my mortgage in Ireland and I was paying rent in London, and I was, going for auditions and trying to meet casting directors over there. And I had a pretty clear strategy, which was to meet the casting directors, hope that they would, meet with me, get to know me a little bit. And when they saw my kind of auditions come through on Spotlight, which is the platform in the UK, they'd know who I was and I'd be more likely to get work. Couldn't even get anybody to meet me, but that's a whole other story. So I was working two jobs just to survive, and one was in a greasy spoon cafe, so like serving up workers, kind of greasy fries. And there was a lot of colleagues, a lot of the waitresses and waiters were from other countries. So I distinctly remember this wonderful girl that I worked with from Egypt, and the owner was Turkish, and good boy, some of the comments that would come out of his mouth in relation to people from other places was interesting. But we always got on really well as like a group of primarily waitresses. There was about 4 or 5 of us from different countries. And there was a huge tip jar beside the till, massive, and there was a lot of money in it. And you know, the guys would throw in their pounds as they would be leaving the after their brekkie. And one day I said to my friend Tarifa, I said to her, where did the tips go? Like, when do you get the tips? And there seems to be quite a lot of tips. And, you know, our salary is really poor. So, like, do we get the tips? And she told me that no, they don't get the tips. And I said, but there's a big sign on the jar that says, you know, the tips are for, you know, your brilliant waitresses, whatever. And she said, yeah, it's a lie. Like, it's a lie.
Mm.
Uh, that really stands out to me as a moment where I went, that's not okay. That's like absolutely blatant lying. So I I organized a protest. More than a protest, I organized a walkout. You know, I was going to do it anyway. So that was
Yeah.
where I was coming from. So I just said to the other girls, I said, listen, I'm not okay with this. So I have a plan. Next Tuesday, you know, after the big breakfast, when there's still a big crowd in the cafe, I'm going to ask the owner what, you know, about the tips very loudly. I'm going to ask him about the process of the tips. So, and I said, to be honest, if it doesn't go well, I will be taking off my apron and leaving.
Mhm.
And I told the other girls, and they said, well, we're with you because this is
Mhm.
absolutely disgraceful. And, you know, we can get another job in another cafe. This, you know, it's not the end of the world. So let's stand up to him and see where it gets us. So the
Mhm.
following Tuesday, like 50 guys and their hard hats in the cafe, and I announced very loudly to the owner, what's the story with the tips, you know? And so I'm asking about the tips, and he's like getting all flustered and you get back to the customers. And I started just getting kind of louder. I guess it was a bit of an acting moment. And I said, no, no, I'm not going back to work. I want you to tell us about the tips. Why does it say here that we get the tips when we don't get the tips? Right. So you know, yeah, absolutely put him on the spot. He was furious. He really showed his true colors. He started shouting at me.
Mm.
And I said, stuff your job, took off my apron, put it on the counter, and looked behind me, and all the other girls did the same. And it was just this incredibly empowering moment of no, it's not okay. You're lying to your customers, you're lying to us,
Mhm.
and you're falsely advertising that, you know, these tips. So anyway, I guess that shows how much I dislike lying.
Yeah.
And I know we live in a world, there's little white lies, or, you know, you wear masks and, you know, you conceal certain facts or figures in business. And I don't live by that. And, you know, the work we do at Immersive, it's all about clarity and transparency with everything, to like every penny we spend is publicly available. And yeah, I think that's very much informed my core values, that kind of demonstrate some of the core values around just that difference in perspectives on maybe maximizing profit or greed. And that said, like I do think we have a big problem in Ireland. I work a lot with creative entrepreneurs and people maybe coming from like theatre or other worlds into like immersive tech, and they're amazing storytellers. Like we have a country full of fantastic storytellers,
Yeah.
but often they would have a real chip on their shoulder around getting paid well. And
Mhm.
it's something I've had to sit with, like my limiting beliefs around finance, and go, hang on a moment. I've worked really hard. I've trained really hard. And, you know, I put in, you know, I've upskilled tremendously. I deserve to get paid adequately to you know, to compensate me for my time and my talent. And so I've had to work hard to value myself and value my time and expertise. But I see it all over, especially in the creative industries where people go, oh, well, I wouldn't want to be greedy. Oh, just give me 150 quid. It's like, okay, can you survive on 150 quid a day, really?
Yeah.
And isn't your time worth more than that? So I do think that there's a lot of work to be done on the limiting belief around like money in Ireland, and how much of it comes from our colonial past. It's something I kind of think about quite a bit. And then of course there's the other extreme, which is where people completely overinflate and the rip-off culture and all of that side of things. But there's a balance there, like everything. There's a balance between valuing your time, your expertise, obviously, your market value, and also the cost of living in Ireland is obviously incredibly high. So you need to be compensated adequately. So that doesn't mean you're greedy, but do the math and, ask for what you deserve to get paid and what's fair for the work that you're providing is something I think about quite a lot.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective on that value of fairness that came through so strongly in your story, that that it's easy to see it applied in that the context maybe that we're more familiar with, which would be, the greedy business owner trying to rip off their employees, and that's not fair. But I love that you brought to light too that idea that, maybe it's, if we really valued fairness, we would also turn that back on ourselves, and we would think about what's truly fair in the way that I am being compensated, and maybe it is fair for me to ask for more. So no, it's an interesting point. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
We already sort of dipped into the next question, which was around, whether you believe there's a crossover or a mingling between your personal and professional values. And I mean, it has come through very clearly already that you see that those are very aligned. Is there anything you'd like to add to that thought?
Like something I was reflecting upon, which relates to this, maybe slightly less to do with values, but is when I was an actor, you're kind of always looking outside, and you're looking for somebody to validate you, and give you a part. And every time you don't get a part, you get, rejected, and that can be really hard on your self-esteem. And then when I found virtual reality again, I was like running around, who's going to hire me? What's that going to look like? Oh no, shouldn't have worked there. That didn't go very well. Okay, but not believing in myself and my talent. And people used to say to me, start your own business. And I used to say, well, oh, I don't know how. And I did a couple of start your own business courses. They didn't really give me the chops that I needed to believe in myself. And particularly, I had massive hang-ups about like my financial acumen. Turns out you can learn these things when you have to, and you can learn them quite quickly, and governance and all of these exciting topics when you're running a not-for-profit organization that you have to be really up to speed with. So yeah, I think being grounded and like believing in yourself it's taken me a long time to get to this point, and I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by folks who always believed in me, and I'd be like, why are they giving me this opportunity? And okay, I'm not, I'm gonna make sure I really do well at that opportunity. It's so kind of them to give it to me. But I've had like amazing opportunities from the people around me in my life who really kind of believed in me. And so I think believing in myself was one of the hardest kind of lessons. And of course, there's faltering within that. It's not like every day I go, hey, I'm feeling really confident today. But I think, yeah, I've definitely become much more grounded because I stopped kind of scattergunning myself, and I focused on one thing. And I have to mention at this point, like, thank you to Creative Ireland who funded Immersive, because we were running Immersive as a voluntary organisation. It was a labour of love. We'd been to the UK. We saw how Immerse UK had galvanized and connected the immersive tech ecosystem in the UK and how it had benefited the industry over time. Fiona Kilkelly was an Irish one from Galway, had set that up, and we had met her, and we were fortunate enough for her to come on board and be our chair for 3 years. I approached her during COVID, and she brought us on this incredible journey again of really believing in ourselves and just being that guiding light in terms of our trajectory. And yeah, I think the funding that we've been receiving for the last 6-8 months through Creative Ireland has helped us to focus. So we now have 4 people part-time focusing on the vision of Immersive, which I can share a bit in a moment. And that focus and funding have helped me and helped all of us to become grounded, to be really clear on who we are, what we are, and why we are. And everything has flowed from that clarity, from that clear line. This is what we're doing now, and we have the funding to do it. And that has changed everything for me personally as well as professionally.
So I think this is the perfect time then. Let's talk a little bit more about Immersive. So if you could share with us, what is Immersive, what is the mission, and then moving from there into what are the values that you've chosen collectively to represent what the work that you're going to do.
Yeah, thank you. So our Immersive is the voice of the Irish immersive technology sector. We are a representative body, a trade association. We officially launched on the 11th of September, so very recently. As I mentioned, we were running Immersive on a voluntary basis, kind of in the background for a few years, and there was a gang of us who set it up originally, and then, due to busy startups and other commitments, people fell away. So myself and James Corbett are both from Meetup Land. So James Corbett ran 3D Camp, a really successful community and meetup that ran for many years in Dublin, and I ran VR Community Ireland, which went on to become XR Dublin. So it kind of, maybe it makes sense that the community builders became the directors and founders that brought it to the next level. So we just launched our membership tiers. So we are representing both companies making immersive solutions and also companies adopting immersive solutions. And what's been fascinating actually is the scale of interested parties that we have that want to work with us, and it's completely blown any of our expectations out of the water. So we've companies in the UK looking to sign up. We've got like a lot of individual like artists and educators looking to sign up, and a lot of like bigger businesses that are just really looking to see what's happening in the space and to be a part of it, not just because it's exciting, because the training solutions have been proven to massively add value. And so our Immersive had been on this journey, so it was really key for us to do some values work, which we did with Adaptus. So I will tell you our values. I will read them if that's okay, just to make sure I say them correctly. So Immersive's values are community. Makes sense, right? We believe in the power of community. We cultivate a culture of knowledge sharing and support between members and Immersive. We believe a rising tide raises all boats. Leadership with integrity. We value honesty, clarity, transparency. We aim to do the right thing and put our members' needs first. As the representative leader of the sector, we bring the needs and wants of our members to change makers and policy makers. Partnership with genuine collaboration. Immersive fosters partnerships across industry, academia, and government that have a genuine collaborative spirit and the best interest of our members and the sector in Ireland at heart. Resilience. We focus on building a resilient sector. We're here to work with you and support your growth needs. We will continue to champion and fight for the betterment of the sector. Purposeful. We genuinely believe in the transformative potential of immersive technologies and the possibilities they present for society and business. So that's our values, and I'm actually getting goosebumps as I read through them because I'm realizing how closely they do align with my personal values. And what's been wonderful to work with James Corbett is we are naturally aligned in our values. It's something we've never actually had to speak about per se, except when we were working through these together. It was a very easy piece of work because I was like, of course, this, of course, of course, of course, of course. So it's wonderful to work very closely with somebody where you do have shared values, and so opportunities come, and if it doesn't feel right to us, we won't go there. And so we've been really fortunate to find these collaborators and partners that share our values. Like we work really closely with cultural and creative industries, SkillNet, Susan Talbot and Garrett Lee. Like we work so closely, and we just have this wonderful kind of flow of collaboration and support for one another's entities. We have a great relationship with Meta. Stephanie Anderson and Dulta O'Brien there have just been really strong advocates, and we've been on a 3-year journey with Meta. And after the tech announcements yesterday at Meta Connect, it's like, oh my God, this is it's just so exciting. It's like I didn't know if it could get more exciting this quickly in the sector, but I'm really buzzing after yesterday's news, the latest headsets, but particularly the latest AR glasses, where there's no screen. It's all just like tiny projectors in a set of glasses. Yeah, so the holographic revolution is coming, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. And also, of course, what it means for training and genuine connection. And when myself and Celine first started exploring immersive solutions that we could look at together, we really wanted to have essentially simulated role play. So like, you know, you can't always have actors, and while that's wonderful, but like to have like live interactive communication, it's just not always feasible. So, you know, cross distance and for other reasons. So we're looking at when can we have a situation where you're having conversations with avatars or, you know, holograms. And the truth is it's here now. Like it's technically possible. It's still quite expensive, but like with these new glasses coming down the way, and facilities like the holographic suite that's coming into the Walton Institute in Waterford, like we are going to see this next wave upon us so soon, and we will be able to have meaningful interactive communication using AI and using holograms for training for any scenario you can possibly think of. And that is so exciting.
Sounds a little bit like we're going to be living in Star Trek any day now.
Yeah, the holodeck is here. Yes, it is.
Well, that leads us really well to our final question, which is, could you tell us a little bit about, and we've already started to answer this, but a little bit more perhaps about how you've been already applying immersive tech to business challenges in a way that aligns with your values and Immersive's values?
Yeah, so that first experience I had where I was in that guy's body, and I could feel what he was feeling, we really lent into that in Adaptus in over the last few years. So we've created numerous immersive videos for clients, and like the use cases are quite broad and varied, but always working with that embodied concept. The first client was FBD Insurance. So you embody the expert. So you're in an experienced salesperson's body having a call, and of course it's like a scripted call, but in that case it was Regina Heffernan. So you're in Regina Heffernan, who is a real person in FBD, who's been working there, you know, for 13 years at the time. And she's so she's so natural with the sales. Of course, it's a sales job. It doesn't feel like that at all. So we wanted to kind of embody her. And we took an example of quite a complicated sales call from their call system, and we brought that to life. And also, very importantly, you're in the very busy call center, so you're with all the atmosphere distractions of the call center, spatial audio. So like, you know, the your colleague from Cork who's shouting down the phone is there, and you have to keep your concentration on your call while you're watching the board to see how many calls are waiting. So it was like very overwhelming. I definitely couldn't do it. But what was brilliant about, speaking of I definitely couldn't do it, is that they used the product for training at the very early stages, right? And it was to build confidence for people, but also, which was something we hadn't thought about when we were building it, was that people realized really quickly if it wasn't for them, because getting up onto the sales floor doesn't happen till you've been trained for a few weeks. But here you were in it, and kind of like day 1, day 2 of your training, and people walked out and went, not for me. And they're like, brilliant, we've just saved loads on training that person that would have left in a few weeks time. So that was really the attrition kind of component was really interesting. And recently we worked with the restaurant hospitality SkillNet or AI, and we built a scenario to train waiters in dealing with really difficult customers and dealing with complaints. And oh my goodness, that piece still, like, you get sweaty palms because we hired this wonderful actress and she nails it. Like, she is such a tough cookie. And the direction we gave her was like, you're just having a really bad day. It's not the food, it's not the waiter. You just, like, everything, whatever's going on in your personal life, unfortunately, you've brought it to this poor waiter's table. And
Yeah.
so, so he has to go through this formula, like, without feeling like that, around dealing with the complaint and apologizing and offering a solution, etc. So you're embodying the waiter who's having, to deal with this really difficult customer and work through this technique to have a more positive resolution, which of course he does. Yeah, so they're the kinds of solutions. So it's all back to, like, this human connection that can be brought to life through technology. Like, people
Mhm.
go, oh, it's a machine. Well, yeah, humans can create the content that's in the machine, and then it does reflect humanity. So they're very authentic mediums. You really feel like you're there, you're transported somewhere else. We do lean in more to video for all of those reasons. However, during COVID, we weren't able to film in the usual way, and we were working with CAMS, the Children Adolescent Mental Health Services in Galway and Roscommon. So we worked with computer generated animation for the first time, and in that, and it kind of worked actually, because the service users in CAMS were a younger demographic, so they were like 15, 16, 17, and they're the scenarios, you're in the perspective of Dala, and Dal is a teenager presenting with anxiety, and they're very anxious. Like, essentially, the first video, embodied video, they're having a panic attack. The walls are literally closing in on them, and they're imagining, their thoughts are spiraling, and you see all those thoughts visualized, and you're hearing their self-talk, their very, very negative self-talk. And so through the videos, there's an intervention with, of course, an augmented reality character pops out of their phone called Moxie, voiced by Dr. Celine Mullins. And so Moxie turns the whole situation around and turns Dalla's negative self-talk into more positive self-talk, brings Dalla through breathing techniques. So these clouds appear, they're hiding in the cubicle in school, in the toilets. And so these clouds appear in the bathroom, and as you breathe, the breath relaxes you and you sync with the clouds. And like, what's really wonderful, Annika, is it's being used all the time at CAMS. It's become a conduit to the conversation around mental health. So when a teenager can't talk about their issues directly, they can talk about Dala. And what's really amazing is that for OAGA, the Youth Service of Ireland, have 650 headsets. They won a Meta mega grant 2 years ago, I think. So they have 650 headsets, and the HSC have released the content. The Dala project will be going onto 650 headsets and helping
Wow.
teenagers all around. Yeah.
That's really exciting. I've
Yeah.
had been lucky enough to personally experience the CHEMS project and meet Moxie. And yeah, it's amazing. And that, alongside the other examples, I think that's hopefully given everyone listening a real insight into, like, actually what does this look like in real life. And very exciting, very exciting. I always want to hear more about what's in the works. But I think what we might do is move into our Q&A section. We've covered so much great content. So I'll just share our closing screen here. Oops. If anyone who's listening to this on the recording is interested in learning more about what we do at Adaptus, you can find us at this contact info or scan the QR code for our website. Camille, thank you so much for being here and sharing your time for this interview portion, and really looking forward to diving into the Q&A.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I loved every moment of it.